going on, guys? It's ETA Prime back here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new PocketGo. Now this is made by the same people who make the BittBoy, and basically what we have here is the new BittBoy in a Game Boy Advanced orientation. We also get an L and an R button, and a lot of people were complaining about that with the new BittBoy, and this definitely fixes it. I've been able to spend about 24 hours with this unit, and I can tell you right now that this thing is absolutely amazing. I personally like the new BittBoy, but I love this form factor. Officially supported systems on this unit are Game Boy Advanced, SNES, Mega Drive, Sega Master System, PC Engine, NES, Game Boy Color, Game Boy, Neo Geo, and MAME. But since it's running that open source software, there's a lot that's going to be coming to this. I can guarantee you that. There will be firmware out as soon as this thing hits the streets. The PocketGo will be rolling out in waves, and as of making this video, there are some available over on their website. Link for that will be in the description. The price right now is set at $39.99, but this will probably increase as more people want to get a hold of the PocketGo. Inside of the box, you're going to receive the PocketGo, an 8GB SD card, micro USB charging, and sync cable so you can add your games from your PC, a user manual, and some extra colored face buttons, and I definitely want to swap these out. I think it's just going to make this thing pop. As for the operating system, this is running the open source GMenu NX, the same thing that's been ported over to the RS-97 and the BittBoy 2. The form factor and look of the PocketGo is absolutely amazing. I would choose this over the new BittBoy every single day. It's using the same screen from the new BittBoy, so we have a 2.4-inch IPS display, and it's not oversaturated like the original BittBoy. Viewing angles are great because it's an IPS display and it just looks stunning. On the left-hand side of the unit, we have our power switch, and on the right-hand side, we have our volume rocker or volume control. All of our I/O is on the very top here. We have a menu button, audio video out, micro USB for charging and sync, a dedicated headphone jack, micro SD card slot, plus, like I mentioned at the beginning, they've added an L and an R button. So now we can properly play GBA and SNES games. Unfortunately, this doesn't have a user replaceable battery like the new BittBoy. The battery is not soldered to the motherboard, it's actually plugged in there with a little connector. So it definitely can be done, but it's not recommended. The overall specs are as follows. We get 8 buttons. We have A, B, X, Y, start, select, L and R, plus we have the menu button and a D-pad. 2.4-inch IPS display at 320 by 240. Single speaker audio setup, GMenu NX firmware, 1000 mAh battery, and they're claiming 3 to 4 hours of runtime. Audio video out, micro USB, headphone jack, power switch, and volume wheel. The operating system and the games will be stored on a single micro SD card. And like always, I have to tear everything apart, so I just wanted to show you guys the internals on this thing. Like I mentioned, you can plug in a new battery if you ever needed to. Disassembly is very easy. It's a total of 6 screws, 4 screws on the back cover, 2 screws holding the main board down. One reason I tore this down is because I wanted to replace the main face buttons with those colorful buttons that they sent with it. And this also gave me a good excuse to check out the CPU. Now, a lot of these retro handhelds coming out nowadays are powered by the J-Series MIPS CPU, which are pretty decent for emulation, on older consoles. But the PocketGo is actually powered by an all-winner F1C 100S. This is a single-core ARM9 CPU up to 900 MHz, and as for RAM, we get 32 megabytes in this unit. Theoretically, for older emulation, this is plenty of power here. This should do Game Boy Advance pretty well. And by the way, these CPUs by Allwinner, the F1C 100S, were used in a lot of e-ink readers in 2017 on up. I did have a quick look at the spec sheet from Allwinner. This should decode 1080p video at 30 FPS and be able to encode 720p at 30 FPS. So here it is in action. I do have some gameplay coming up. I just wanted to show you the menu real quick. We got some Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, NES, SNES, Atari Lynx, 2600, Mega Drive, Sega Master System, PC Engine, PS1, Arcade, Neo Geo, WonderSwan, and DOS. I'm going to tell you right now that PS1 isn't going to perform well on this hardware. There may be some 2D games that work fine, but overall, you're not going to have a great experience with it. You'll also have some pre-installed freeware games like Doom, Quake 2, Quake 1, and Cannonball. There's also Cave Story in here, and everything I've tested works really well. From the settings menu, we can go to CPU settings, and the default speed is set at 702 with a maximum of 900 and a minimum of 200. I cannot change the default to 900 in this menu yet. You can change the skin. There's a few pre-installed here. I'll just go with one of these to show you. It makes it look totally different. And with new firmware, there will be new skins. You're going to store all of your games on the SD card, and by the way, this will support up to 128 gigabyte card. I'll go into NES real quick. It'll bring me to my File Explorer menu, and we can load it right from here. All of the emulators do have settings that we can mess around with. By tapping your menu button, we can get into those settings. You can save and load, change your frame skip, and each emulator will have different settings, so you kind of need to mess around with it. Some games will require frame skip, some games are going to be fine without it. With NES, Game Boy, Atari 2600, and Atari Lynx, you won't have to mess around with those settings. I'm pretty sure everything's going to run, but when you go to Game Boy Advance and SNES, some games will require frame skip and changing a few settings to get them to run at full speed. Here's some Game Boy Advance gameplay, and I've actually had really good luck with this system here. Compared to, let's say, the LDK game or the RS-97, which runs the MIPS CPU, this thing definitely outperforms it in GBA emulation. I tested out a few emulators with a bunch of different games. I will have the system listed in the top right hand corner, and I'll be back in just a second. No trouble at all running NES games on this unit, and by the way, since we have those 4 face buttons, the upper 2 buttons act as turbo buttons for NES games. Super Nintendo emulation on the PocketGo is pretty good, but you will run into a few games, like Yoshi's Island, that are just going to struggle on this unit. I did have this weird red flashing while running Samurai Showdown with the Neo Geo emulator, but I'm sure this could be fixed with later firmware updates. Overall, Neo Geo does perform pretty well. So in the end, the PocketGo is an awesome little emulation machine, and well worth $40 in my opinion. But if you already own the LDK game or the new BittBoy, there's really no reason to purchase this, except for the form factor. Now personally, I would choose this over both of those that I just mentioned because I love the way this is set up. We got that LNR, and even though the LDK also has LNR, it's a bit awkward to get to them. This does seem to perform better in Game Boy Advance games than the MIPS-powered handhelds that have been coming out. But in the end, it's really up to you. So if you're interested in picking one of these up, I will leave links in the description. Like I mentioned, as of making this video, the price is $39.99, but this will probably increase in the next few weeks. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you watching. Definitely keep an eye on the channel because as soon as some new firmware is released for this, I will do a video and tutorial.